The elevator dropped once hard enough that her champagne glass hit the mirror and shattered before either of us fully registered the sound. Not the kind of drop that ends a movie, just one ugly jolt between the 11th and 12th floors, followed by a stop so sudden my shoulder hit the rail. Then the lights cut out. A second later, the backup strip came on, pale blue, just enough to show me the woman across from me, washing the doors with a calm that felt earned rather than natural. By the end of that night, a man I'd never met before would try to make me look unstable in front of a room full of strangers. But that part comes later. Right then, all I knew was that I was stuck in a stalled elevator in a rented tux, and my chest was already doing the thing it does, the tight thing, the thing I usually managed better than this. "You all right?" she asked. "I need a second," I said. "I have a thing about small spaces. I usually manage it. I did not expect an audience. I'm hardly an audience," she said. "I'm also trapped here." Different tier of witness. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, knees drawn up, one hand pressed flat against my sternum like I could hold my own heartbeat in place. She pressed the emergency intercom. "Building services, we have a report of elevator 4 stalled between floors. Please remain calm. Response team is en route." "Define en route," she said into the speaker. "Ma'am, please remain calm." "Riveting," she muttered, and something about the flatness of her voice made me laugh despite myself. "What's your name?" I asked. "Nora." "I'm Theo." "Nora, look at my hand." "Why?" "Because right now the walls are more interesting to my brain than they should be, and I need to borrow something to focus on instead." She held up 4 fingers and folded them one at a time, slow. "I do this thing with a camera," I said, unprompted. "Count the shutter clicks instead of my heartbeat." "It's stupid." "It's not stupid," she said. "Do it." I closed my eyes and let my fingers twitch like I was pressing an invisible shutter button. 4 counts in, 4 counts held, 4 counts out. My shoulders came down half an inch. "That's better," she said. "Marginally. I'll take marginally." The intercom crackled again. "Ma'am, sir, we've identified an electrical fault. Fire rescue has been notified. This could take some time." "Some time meaning what?" I asked. 40 minutes. 4 hours. A geological era. "We appreciate your patience," the voice said. Nora looked at me. "Well," she said, "looks like it's just you and me in a very patient building." "Terrific," I said. Trapped with a stranger who negotiates with intercoms. Somebody has to. We sat like that for a while, me working through my breathing, her watching without hovering, which I appreciated more than I said out loud. Eventually, she asked what I did for a living. "Guess," I said. She studied me. "You've got calluses on 2 fingers that don't match office work, and there's a lens cap in your jacket pocket." "Photographer." "Wildlife?" "Mostly. I'm in town for a gallery show upstairs, which I am now going to miss the opening of in this dress rehearsal for a coffin." "That's dark," she said. "I'm allowed. I'm claustrophobic in a stopped elevator at a black tie event. Let me have this one joke." "Granted." "What do you do?" I asked. "Guess," she said, mimicking me. "You're wearing scrubs under that blazer," I said. "I can see the collar." "Nurse." "Close." "Pharmacist." "Hospital, pharmacy, night shift mostly." That's oddly specific detective work for someone who was calm this whole time. "Recovering calm," she said. "I multitask." We played a version of that game for almost an hour, guessing strangers' jobs from a single detail, arguing over whether accountants really all wear the same watch, whether every dentist secretly hates their job. It wasn't much, but it filled the space where the silence wanted to sit, and every time she laughed, my breathing evened out a little more. Somewhere around hour 2, I told her I'd flown in from a project overseas after a business partner had quietly sold half my archive to a stock photo site without telling me, out from under a contract we'd built together for 6 years. I said it the way people say things they've said too many times already. Flattened out, worn smooth, though my voice caught on the word contract, and I had to stop for a second and press the heel of my hand against my eyes. "I'm supposed to be starting over," I said. "New gallery, new representation, actual legal boundaries this time." Instead, I'm having an emotional collapse in a broken elevator in front of a pharmacist I met 40 minutes ago. "You're doing great," she said. 10 out of 10 start over energy. "You're very committed to the bit," I said. "It's a defense mechanism," she said. "I have several." Around hour 3, we split a granola bar from her clutch and a stick of gum from my jacket. And somewhere in there, the conversation stopped being a performance and started being real. I asked why a small elevator didn't seem to bother her at all, and she told me it did, quietly, that she just didn't let it show anymore. Not since a car accident 3 years back where the sound metal maid folding the wrong way had rewired something in her. "I don't usually tell people that," she said. "I don't usually cry in front of strangers over stock photo licensing," I said. We're both having a night. At some point, I told her she was the steadiest person I'd ever been trapped with, and she told me I'd only been trapped with one person, so my sample size was garbage, and I said that was fair, but I was sticking with the compliment anyway. I felt something shift in my chest that had nothing to do with the elevator. When the doors finally opened, 5 hours after they'd closed, the hallway was too bright and too full of firefighters and event staff, and one very unbothered building manager holding a clipboard. "You two know each other?" the manager asked, glancing between us. "We do now," I said. She stepped out first, legs unsteady, and I caught her elbow just long enough to make sure she had her balance, then let go. "Well," she said, "thank you for the emotional support and the job guessing game." "Wait," I said, before she could get more than 2 steps away. "Say the elevator game one more time. Job guess. Me first." She turned around. "Fine, go." I studied her for a second. "Someone who negotiates with panicking strangers for sport and needs my number so she can keep doing it professionally." "That's not a job," she said. "It's an application." She gave me her number. I texted her before she'd even made it to the parking garage. My message just said, "For the record, pharmacist was an easy guess. I'm still impressed by the intercom negotiation." Coffee happened 2 days later at a small place near the hospital that made terrible coffee and good pastries. I showed up with a disposable camera I'd bought at a drugstore because my real one felt like too much for a first date. And by the end of the week, there was a photo of the two of us tucked under her windshield wiper, badly framed and slightly overexposed, with a note on the back that said evidence this happened. We didn't call it dating at first. We called it recovering from an elevator, which felt more accurate. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became me waiting outside the hospital at the end of her shift with 2 coffees, one of them wrong on purpose so she'd correct me and I could pretend to be offended. She started packing me lunch when I had early gallery meetings, because apparently that was a thing she did now. Apparently she was becoming a person who packed lunches. One evening, standing at her door after I'd walked her home, I said, "I like this. I don't want to rush it." "Good," she said. "Neither do I. You're not going to pretend that doesn't scare you a little." "It scares me a normal amount," I said. "That's the least reassuring thing you've said all week." I laughed, and for a second, I thought about kissing her, and instead I just said goodnight and walked away, feeling like I'd won something by not chasing it. The trouble started on a Tuesday, in the parking lot outside the hospital. I was walking toward the entrance to meet Nora after her shift when I heard a man's voice say her name like it still belonged to him. Nora. A man stood by the entrance in a suit that cost more than my rent, hands in his pockets, expression arranged into something that wanted to look like concern. "You look tired," he said. "Are they working you too hard here?" "Go home, Victor," she said. I just wanted to talk. We don't have anything to talk about. That's when I came around the corner, camera bag over one shoulder, and stopped when I saw the two of them. "Everything okay?" I asked, stepping closer. Victor's eyes moved over me the way you'd assess furniture. "And you are." "Stay away from her," Nora said, before I could answer. "That's who he is." Victor smiled without any warmth in it at all. "Cute," he said. "Does he know what he signed up for?" "He signed up for nothing," Nora said. "He's not part of this." Victor looked at me. "She's very good at making people feel necessary," he said, "right up until she isn't. Ask her how many people she's needed and then walked away from." "That's not fair," Nora said. "Fair," Victor repeated. "You want to talk about fair?" I stepped between them, not touching Victor, just placing myself where his line of sight would have to go through me first. "You need to leave," I said. Victor's jaw worked. "This isn't over, Nora," he said, and walked to his car. Nora didn't say anything until his car pulled out of the lot. Then I asked, quietly, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said. "That wasn't nothing," I said. "No," she said. "It wasn't." We sat in my truck in the hospital lot for 20 minutes while she explained who Victor was, an ex she'd been with for 4 years, an attorney who had never once raised his voice and never once needed to, because he had other ways of making a room feel smaller, ways of making you doubt your own memory of a conversation, ways of turning a disagreement into evidence of your instability. "He'll try to make me the villain," I said. "He's good at it," she said. "He's had practice." "I'm not worried about that," I said. "You should be a little worried," she said. "He's thorough." Over the next 2 weeks, Victor was thorough. He emailed Nora's hospital's HR department with vague concerns about her judgment, citing nothing specific, just enough language to make people ask questions. He called her sister and told her he was worried Nora was making reckless decisions, that she'd always been like this under stress. He showed up outside the hospital twice more, never close enough to be confronted directly, just close enough to be seen. He wants an audience, Nora told me one night, sitting in her kitchen after a long shift. If we give him one, he wins something. If we don't, he loses his whole plan. Then we don't give him one, I said. It's not that simple, she said. I know. But I'm not going anywhere because a man in an expensive suit wants me to. The public moment came at the hospital's annual fundraiser. 3 weeks later, in a hotel ballroom full of donors and doctors and Nora's own supervisor. I'd come as her guest. We were near the dessert table when Victor appeared, dressed like he belonged there, which technically he did, since his firm was one of the hospital's donors. A small engraved name badge clipped to his lapel with the firm's logo and his name printed under it. Nora, he said, loud enough for the people near us to hear. I was hoping we could clear the air. There's no air to clear, she said. He turned to the small cluster of people nearby, her supervisor included, and said, I just think it's important. People know the full picture before they trust her judgment with anything important. She has a pattern of instability under pressure. I'd hate for that to become someone else's problem. The room didn't go silent, exactly, but it got quiet enough that I felt every word land. I stepped up beside Nora, not in front, beside. That's an interesting thing to announce at a hospital fundraiser, I said, calm and even. Considering the room is full of people whose actual job is diagnosing instability. Maybe let them decide who's showing signs of it tonight. Victor's smile thinned. This isn't your business, he said. She's my business, I said. What you're doing right now, in front of her coworkers, is everyone's business. Nora's supervisor, who had said nothing this whole time, finally spoke. Victor, she said, I think it's time you left. Victor looked between the three of us, recalculated something behind his eyes, and left without another word. The room went back to its noise within a minute, but I stood there feeling like something had cracked open in my chest. Later that night, in her apartment, Nora told me the whole history, all of it, the 4 years, the way Victor used to make an argument feel like it started before she'd said anything wrong, the way he'd once told her she was too sensitive, so many times she'd started apologizing before she even knew what she was apologizing for. I should have documented things back then, she said. I didn't. I just left. You can document things now, I said. The next day, she went to the hospital's legal counsel, not the police, since Victor's conduct had crossed into her workplace, and filed a formal record request, dates, the HR emails, the fundraiser incident witnessed by her own supervisor. It wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden arrest, no scene. Just a woman behind a desk taking notes, and Nora saying out loud, clearly, that this had been happening and she wanted it on record. I sat in the waiting area the entire time and didn't go in when she asked me not to. When she came out, I stood up and asked how it went. I did it, she said. You, okay, I asked. Getting there. Victor's firm received a formal complaint from the hospital shortly after, and whatever internal consequences came with that, neither of us ever fully learned, but he stopped emailing HR, stopped calling her sister, stopped appearing anywhere near the hospital. A month passed without a single sighting. The first night after everything went quiet, Nora and I sat on her kitchen floor eating takeout because neither of us wanted to deal with plates, and she asked, Do you ever think about the elevator? Constantly, I said. This whole relationship is built on a building code violation. She laughed and said, Guess the job. I looked at her. Someone who now spends her free time filing formal complaints and eating takeout off the floor with a man she met during a mechanical failure. Close, she said. Try again. Someone who's staying, I said. That's the one, she said. A few months later, we started talking about opening a small studio together. Half my photography work, half a quiet space where she could run evening workshops for people managing anxiety. Something neither of us had planned separately, but both of us kept circling back to in conversation. We found a narrow storefront near the hospital with bad lighting and a landlord who overpromised on the plumbing, and we signed the lease anyway. On the day we moved the last of the equipment in, I stood in the middle of the empty space, and Nora asked what I thought. I think the wiring is going to be a nightmare, I said. Romantic, she said. I also think I can see us here, I said. She crossed the room and took both my hands. I'm choosing this, I said. Not because an elevator forced us together, because I keep choosing it every day since, on purpose. I want that on the record too. I'm choosing it too, she said, throat tight. On purpose, every day. We hung a single framed photo by the door, the disposable camera shot from our first date, overexposed and slightly crooked, with the same note on the back. Evidence this happened. Victor became a name we didn't need anymore. I heard once, secondhand, that his firm had quietly let him go after a pattern of complaints from former colleagues finally caught up with him. No dramatic downfall. Just consequences arriving late, the way they usually do. Every time Nora and I ride an elevator now, right before the doors close, she looks at me and says, "Guess the job." I always say something ridiculous. She always disagrees. Then the doors close and we're just two people going home. Would you have trusted a stranger after 5 hours trapped in a stalled elevator? And if someone from your partner's past tried to turn a room against them in public, would you have stayed quiet or would you have stepped forward?